Today we're going to be learning how to crochet these cute and easy applique gloves. These are super customizable. This is a beginner-friendly project and I will be covering the stitches with you as we use them. I'm also going to leave the written pattern down in the description for you if you'd like to follow along with that. All you're going to need for this project is some worsted weight 4 acrylic yarn. You can use as many or as few colors as you'd like. You're going to need a pair of scissors, a 5mm hook, and a tapestry needle. And we can go ahead and get started. To get started on our gloves, we need to first make a slip knot. To make a slip knot, we're going to wrap the yarn around 2 of our fingers, pinch the yarn tail with our thumb, and then with the pointer finger on our opposite hand, I'm putting that under that first strand of yarn and over the second. Then I'm flipping that second strand of yarn up and pulling it tight. Let's do that one more time. I'm wrapping the yarn around my fingers and across, pinching the yarn tail with my thumb, taking my pointer finger on my opposite hand and putting it under the first strand of yarn and over the second. Then I'm flipping that second strand of yarn up and pulling it tight to make my slip knot. So we can go ahead and put our hook into our slip knot and tighten it down and get started on our chain. We're going to be starting with the cuff section of our gloves. And I'm going to chain 10. If you'd like a larger or smaller cuff, just make a smaller or larger chain. This is totally up to you. Like I said, I will be chaining 10. To make a chain, we're going to yarn over and pull that directly through the loop on our hook. Again, yarn over and pull that directly through the loop on your hook. And go ahead and keep making chains until you're happy with the width of your cuff. Okay, I have my 10 chains here, and we want to start row 1 by making 1 single crochet into each chain, starting in the second chain from the hook. So this is going to be our first chain right here, and our second chain from the hook right here. So we want to place our very first single crochet into this chain. We're going to make our single crochet by inserting the hook into that second chain from the hook, yarning over and pulling up a loop so that you have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through both of those loops on the hook to make 1 single crochet. Again, let's go into the next chain. Insert the hook, yarn over and pull up a loop so that you have 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through both of those loops to make your next single crochet. And we're going to continue making 1 single crochet into each chain until we reach the end of our chain. So it should be looking something like this, and you should end with 1 less single crochet stitch than the number of chains that you made. So for example, I made 10 chains and I ended with 9 single crochets in total, and that is because we started making our single crochets into the second chain from the hook there. Okay, let's go ahead and get started on row 2. And for every row in our cuff section, we're going to be chaining 1 and turning our work so that we can work back down in the opposite direction for the next row. So for the cuff section, from here on out, we're going to be placing each one of our stitches into the back loop only. So as you can see at the top of our work, we have these 2 V's here. This is the top of our single crochet stitches. And this here is going to be the back loop. So we want to make each one of our single crochets into the back loops only for the entire cuff. I'm skipping over this chain that we made, and I want to make my next single crochet into this very first stitch. And because we're going into the back loop only, I'm going to put my hook into that back loop of that very first stitch. Yarn over and pull up a loop. Yarn over and pull through both of those loops on my hook to make my very first single crochet. And for row 2, I am making 1 single crochet into each back loop for the entire row. Okay, I'm to my very last stitch, and it is very easy to miss this stitch. If you end up missing it, your work is going to get progressively smaller as you add rows. So be very careful not to miss this stitch here. Okay, that completes row 2. To get started on row 3, just like every row, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work over so we can work back down in the opposite direction. So for row 3 onward, we're going to continue row 2. We're going to be placing 1 single crochet into each stitch in the back loop only for the entire row. Then we're going to chain 1, flip our work over, and continue on to the next row. And you should have the exact same number of stitches in every single row. And you want to continue making rows until your cuff fits comfortably around your wrist, and you can easily take it on and off. So I'm going to go ahead and continue making all of my rows until my cuff fits comfortably around my wrist, and I will meet you back here. Okay, I ended up with 24 rows. You may have a different number of rows than I do, but that's okay. You just want this to fit comfortably around your wrist. Next, we need to connect this last row with our very first row to form a little loop. And we're going to do that by slip stitching the first row together with the last row along this edge here. So I've folded my cuff together, and we're going to insert the hook into the back loop of our last stitch there. And you can see along, this is our first row here, this is our chain that we made. And I'm going to insert my hook also into that chain. This very first loop here, just like that. Then I'm going to make a slip stitch by yarning over and pulling my hook directly through all of those loops, including the one that is on my hook. Again, I'm going into the next stitch on my very last row, into that back loop only. Then I'm going into my first row, into that next chain, and making a slip stitch by yarning over and pulling through all of those loops on the hook. So let's keep doing that until we have connected that entire edge together, the first row with the last row. Okay, now we have our little loop here. This is our completed cuff. And we're going to start making the top part of our glove. So I have chained 1, and I'm going to start placing my single crochets, roughly 1 into the top of each one of my rows here, until I've made it all the way around the top of my cuff. Alright, I have single crocheted all the way around the top edge of my cuff here, and you can see that I have made about 1 single crochet per row, and I ended with 24 single crochets in total. Next, I'm going to make a slip stitch into the very first single crochet that we made at the beginning of the row. And we can go ahead and get started on the next row. For the next row, I'm going to chain 1. And for this row, we're going to half double crochet 1 into each one of our single crochets that we made in the last row. To make a half double crochet, we're going to yarn over, insert the hook into that same stitch that we made our slip stitch into, pull up a loop so that you have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops on the hook. Make sure that you are working into the entire stitch this time, not just into the back loop. So you're going to want your hook to go under both of those V's at the top there. So again, let's yarn over, insert the hook into that next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop so that you have 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops on your hook to make your next half double crochet. And we're going to keep doing that all the way around, placing 1 half double crochet into each stitch. And you should end up with the same number of half double crochet stitches as you had single crochets in your last row. Alright, I am at the end of the row, and I'm going to skip over this slip stitch and this chain here, and I'm going to make a slip stitch into the very first half double crochet that we made at the beginning of the row. So that completes row 26. Let's go ahead and get started on row 27. Now row 27 and row 28 are going to be exactly the same as row 26. We're going to chain 1 and half double crochet 1 into each stitch for the entire round. And again, you should end up with the exact same number of stitches that you had in the previous round. When you reach the end of the round, you're going to make a slip stitch into the very first half double crochet that you made at the beginning of the round. So go ahead and finish row 27 and row 28, and I will meet you back here. I'm at the end of row 28. I'm skipping over the slip stitch and the chain that I made at the beginning of the row. And I'm making my slip stitch into the very first half double crochet that I made. And that completes row 28. To start on row 29, I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to half double crochet 1 into each of the first 3 stitches here. So let's place our first half double crochet into that very first stitch, a half double crochet into the next stitch, and a half double crochet into that third stitch. And this is going to be our first increasing round. So into the fourth stitch here, we need to place 2 half double crochets both into that same stitch. So I'm placing my first half double crochet and then my second half double crochet into that same stitch. So we're going to repeat this all the way around for the entire row. We're going to half double crochet 3 and then make our increase by placing 2 half double crochets into the same stitch. And like I said, I'm going to repeat that all the way around until I get to the end of row 29. Ending row 29 with my slip stitch into that first half double crochet that we made. And let's go ahead and get started on row 30 and 31. For both row 30 and 31, we're going to chain 1 and we're going to place 1 half double crochet into each stitch for the entire round. So I'm going to go ahead and do row 30 and 31, placing 1 half double crochet into each stitch for the entire round and finishing the round with the slip stitch. And I will meet you back here. I'm at the end of row 31 now, and you should end row 30 and 31 with the exact same number of stitches that you ended with in row 29. To get started on row 32, we're going to chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Next, we need to skip over 5 of our stitches here. So let's count over 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm going to place a half double crochet into the 6th stitch away from where we're working here. So this is going to be our thumb hole for our glove. Next, we're going to half double crochet 1 into the next 2 stitches here. And this is going to be a decreasing round. So we're going to make 3 half double crochets and then a decrease, 3 half double crochets and then a decrease for the entire round. So we've got our 3 half double crochets here. Now I need to make my decrease. To half double crochet 2 together and make my decrease, I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into that first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop like we're starting our half double crochet. Then I'm inserting my hook into that next stitch, yarning over and pulling up a loop so that I have 4 loops on my hook. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 4 of those loops on the hook, and that makes our half double crochet 2 together, or our decrease. So like I said, we're going to half double crochet 3 and then make our decrease all the way around for the entire row, and I will meet you at the end of the round. Okay, now we can go ahead and get started on row 33 through row 35, which are going to be worked in continuous rounds. So we're going to start off by placing 6 half double crochets into this chain space here that we made. We're not going to be going into the actual chain, but working our stitches around the chain that we made. So let's place our 6 half double crochets around that chain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Just like that. Now we're going to keep on working 1 half double crochet into each stitch all the way around. Okay, I've made it all the way around my row here, back to the beginning. And like I said, we're going to start working in continuous rounds, which means we will just continue working a half double crochet into each stitch all the way around instead of making a slip stitch and chaining 1. So I'm just going to keep on working into that next stitch there, that first half double crochet that we made, and I'm going to work all the way around 2 more times in total. So I should have 3 rows here, 1, 2, and 3 to finish the top part of my glove. Okay, I'm at the end of row 35 now. You can see that I have 3 rows on top of my chain here. And the last thing we need to do is to even out this top edge. We don't want our stitch to cut off like that. So we're going to slip stitch 1 into the next 3 stitches here. Just insert the hook, pull up the loop, and pull that directly through the loop on your hook to make a slip stitch. And we're going to do that 2 more times to go ahead and flatten out that top edge. Just like that. And to tie off, I'm going to chain 1 and cut my yarn. I'm going to pull that yarn up through the chain that I made and pull that tight. And I can go ahead and weave in this yarn tail. So to make your second glove, we're going to follow the exact same steps that we just followed, row 1 through 35. Go ahead and rewind the video if you need to. These gloves can be worn on either hand. They are not right or left specific. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next step. Now this next step is completely optional. If you'd like to leave your glove just like this, that's okay, but I'm also going to go over how you can customize your glove if you want to. For this example, I'm going to be using my star applique. I have a full video tutorial for this, and I will leave a link to it down in the description. I also have a video tutorial for the heart and the bow, and I will leave those down in the description for you to follow. So the first thing I'm going to do is add this color around the top of my glove. So I'm just going to take my new yarn color and I need to attach it to this top edge. So you can choose any stitch that you like. I'm just going to insert my hook into that stitch, and then I'm going to pick up my new yarn color. Then I'm going to chain 1. And I'm going to single crochet 1 into that very same space. Just like that. And now I'm going to single crochet 1 into each stitch all the way around the top of my glove here. And I'm going to work around this yarn tail to hide it. So when I make my single crochet, I'm working around that yarn tail to hide it within the stitch. Okay, I'm at the end of my row now. I'm going to go into that very first single crochet that we made. I'm skipping over the chain and I'm making a slip stitch. And that completes that last row of my glove there to add the color. And to tie off, I'm going to chain 1, cut my yarn, and then I'm pulling my hook up and that yarn through the chain and pulling that tight. To add an applique to your glove, again, I have a full tutorial for the star applique, the bow, and the heart. So once you have your applique finished, we're just going to take our tapestry needle with an extra length of yarn that is the same color as our applique, and we're going to sew it onto the surface of our glove, and you'll end up with something just like this. I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know how your project turned out in the comments, and subscribe if you're not already, and I will see you guys in the next one.